Hey there everyone, and welcome back to the Lands of Alaire. We've been on hiatus, but we have returned to do a Season 1 recap. I am joined here by my good friends Tori and Aaron of Joined by Gaming, my younger brother Tyler, and my older brother TJ. I'm Ian the Dungeon Master, and I am definitely ready to jump back into the Lands of Alaire, our 5e adventure.
Yeah, it's good to be back at the table.
Back at the table, yeah, right?
Finally.
Poor thing's been turned off for a month now or so, yeah. So, the general idea of this is that we go back over what happened in Season 1 so that you guys can jump right into Season 2, get a reminder if you already watched Season 1, or be able to skip it if you don't want to watch 36 hours of D&D to be able to know what's going on. So, our adventure begins on the continent of Alaire. At the northern end, in the occupied kingdom of Sarengar. Sarengar is a wild land of mountains and pine forests, where a group of people known as free roamers have settled down under the guidance of ice giants over the past several thousand years, and these barbarians coalesced into communities and learned how to survive in the savage north. However, the rising kingdom to their south in recent years, Farinwell, has since occupied them, and for the past decade has strong-armed them and held control over them with their armies occupying that nation. That was a lot of the focus of Season 1, was revealing the Farinwellians, their encroachment on this land, and what it means for Alaire as a whole. You guys are an awesome party of Erlon, the half-elf barbarian, Melee, the human archer, Leander, the half-orc paladin, and Gilroy, the human wizard, found themselves on a red wagon, which is essentially a prisoner's transport for conscripts who are being sent north to fight off the seasonal orcish hordes that come down from the far northern Algor range. This is known as a problem in Sarengar. It's just a natural occurrence. It's always been a thing that happens. The orcs come down, they plunder and pillage as far as they go, then they return to the mountains until next year. Well, Farinwell didn't particularly like that, so they sent conscripts and prisoners, ne'er-do-wells and those who they don't really desire to be in Farinwell anymore, all the way up north to fight them off. And so I kicked you guys off, being led by Wagon Master Niem on a red wagon. And how did you guys feel for that introduction, being, you're on Executioner's Row?
Gilroy was terrified at the time. He was resigned to death, mostly. Yeah, was not very excited to be up there. He had other, objectives he was hoping to accomplish.
Yeah. He had been waylaid quite a bit on that.
Yes.
And pretty much the only comfort and hope he found was in Melee.
Yeah, Melee had been hired to protect Gilroy
Yep.
on his mission, and she was more annoyed, I think, than
Yeah, that was an inconvenience.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Based on how Gilroy was chained up, being a wizard, the wagon master probably didn't want you getting into too much mischief, but he was chained up from the get-go, whereas Melee was permitted to walk. Gilroy probably caused some trouble with the Farinwellians before they captured him. Melee probably recognized that's just not worth it and went along with the ride. You said that Leander did this willingly. He joined the red wagon on its way up because he just felt like that was the most noble way to spend his time.
I feel like that, and he probably didn't want to spend weeks on the run and then inevitably be sent up there. And I think even as a player, it felt still daunting. We're level 1. There's orcs, man. Orcs are scary.
A horde of orcs up that way, and you knew, people die to these things all the time. It's just the way it goes. And between you and Erlon, that showed off. The Farinwellians are no fans of half-breeds these days. Specifically, Erlon would be a great example of this, as he is a bit of a diplomat, a representative of his people, a part human tribe and a part elven tribe that had coalesced in an attempt to defend themselves against the Farinwellians, and Erlon was the product of this marriage, and subsequently, even with whatever diplomatic immunity he may imagine he had, he ended up on the red wagon too.
Completely chained down. He had to be taken down probably by like 5 men.
No, exactly, yeah. And so you guys were shipped off to the Algor Range and its surrounding settlement, which was the town of Helmtop. Which I made into a bit of a really nice little hub. It had a bit of everything a starting adventurer could use. Some cool little adventures, as well as some really good resources. But before you had made it there, you went to the forward camp. That was a quick kind of hub area that we kicked you off on, where you met Captain Talir Doralon. And Captain Talir ended up being totally badass. He was actually like a level 5 fighter, but the way I rolled him in combat was just like critical hit.
Yeah.
19, 18, and so it ended up being that the players were just like, this guy, like, thank God we have Captain Talir. He also had 3 names.
I was gonna say, and he went by Captain Talir, Captain Dorlan,
yeah, that was something I never went into, but might have been a little confusing. Along in the forward camp, you guys met with some, how do I say, not exactly your normal band of adventurers, fellows to find in the road. Olarin Gray, who joined you on the Red Wagon, actually, was a conscript human farm boy. He had a heart of gold, and he was intent on following you guys. He was strong and hardy, but definitely naive and young for the danger he was getting himself into. You also met up with Zorn, who was a surprisingly intelligent and quick-witted and well-read half-orc from the far southern lands of Kel'Ira. Eventually you learned that he was a slave to Dragonborn and freed himself. And that is much of the reason why he learned evocation magics and then swore them off. You met with Bilberry, a sneaky and kind-hearted halfling who assisted you many times in your adventures to come, despite his underground connections. You met with Jeantel Dustrin, a very, very proficient female half-elf ranger who is incredibly well-trained and joined you on your first few forays into the north to attempt to find the whoever brought all the Orcish tribes together for this seasonal raid. And finally, Zelryan Gallagher was introduced in the forward camp, and he was a high elf nobleman who was touring for the fun of it, the forward camp, and the death and destruction that was soon to hit it. Of those characters, which one do you think was your favorite, TJ?
Zorn.
Zorn?
For sure, yeah.
I saw that one.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And
He was so somber and, like, morose, but so powerful and wise at the same time,
Yeah.
He taught Gilroy a number of things throughout the first season, but, maybe, like, the most heroic out of all of them, I think, to some degree. A self-starter and a pretty dangerous dude.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah, Gilroy found a fondness for him, for sure.
No doubt. What about you?
I had to be Olarin.
Yeah, Olarin and Leander grew rather close over the days to come because of Olarin's just too kind a kid.
I was gonna say, he was just a farm boy who grabbed his father's sword and went off to fight orcs. As a player, kind of made it my mission to make sure he lived,
Oh, absolutely.
When you get attached to an NPC like that.
Yeah, I remember the first few sessions where you're like, "Ooh, man, I thought Olarin was a goner."
I was like, "Oh, Ian's gonna kill him off soon or something," but he stuck around.
You did. But what about you?
Probably Jeantel.
Jeantel's awesome.
Yeah, she's very focused. And
Yes.
I like that. She doesn't let a lot of the bullshit really.
No,
get to her
exactly.
at
Yeah,
all.
that was the thing. She was intent on surviving.
Yes.
And Jeantel also had an interesting background in that she's essentially a princess of sorts, who had chosen to exile herself from her hidden elven community to be able to find her way back and regain her honor. And throughout that, she just has this sleepless ambition. And every time you guys met her, I was like, she looks like she hasn't slept in days. And that's because she's always out scouting, trying to just solve the problems of the land. And was, in the beginning, as proficient an archer as you, though you quickly outgrew her in those capacities, because melee is a crack shot.
I'm really surprised you didn't say Zelryan.
That's what I was.
Melee loves picking on Zelryan.
It's probably my least favorite character, including all the villains. Which is in a tribute to how well you wrote.
Awesome.
I
Good to know.
cannot stand him.
Yeah, Erlon, actually, you were the first to really interact with Zelryan, and that must have been fun.
Yeah, he was definitely my favorite.
You think so?
Yeah, I think because he's so unlikable, and because he's so different than the normal adventurer. Usually, everybody's got like a call to duty in D&D and things like that, and he's like, "No, I'm just gonna flaunt my money and this is fun while people are suffering." And it's just like, I don't know, you don't usually see something like that.
No, absolutely.
I like challenging him when I could.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, let's arm wrestle. Yeah, you're so tough. Like,
yeah, he makes for a good recurring character, and I wanted someone who showed off some neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who wasn't exactly motivated to do good, not exactly motivated to do evil either, and that's what Zelryan became. And yeah, I'm rather fond of him, actually. So you guys soon discovered, upon arriving at the forward camp, and a rundown of the situation from Jeantel, as well as Captain Alaire, that there was a war chief named Vorkin out there, who had gathered together tribes of ogres, as well as tribes of orcs, to commit to one huge raid instead of the seasonal progressive raids that Sarengar is used to. This obviously posed a huge threat to the forward camp, which Captain Alaire decided that the best chance of survival was to retreat to Helmtop. Might sound a little bit cowardice, but this is an example of Captain Talaire's commanding ability. He knew that it would be a slaughter to remain there. Helmtop was the only place where they could actually regather with some force and attempt to repel this with any success. What did you guys think when I first introduced the name Vorkin as this orc war chief? You soon learned that he was much more than that.
I think, did we first learn about him from the Poisoner's
You learned
notes?
about him from the Poisoner's book, yeah.
That guy was tough.
Kual the Poisoner, yeah. Yep, you guys dive deep into his cave. I can probably switch us on over to that map for fun.
Yeah, but there's definitely some intimidation, a lot of mystery, setting up a little more central figure than just bands of orcs and stuff was
Definitely.
Cool.
Very, Vorkin's just a very scary sounding name, I guess. It sounds intimidating. It's got those like harsh kind of vowel sounds.
I wanted something that sounded orcish,
yeah,
as to mislead and cause you to believe that you were dealing with a low-level orcish war chief, someone who is a brute that could be taken down once we go north and do a special mission and take him out. I'll cut us over to the cave hideout. This was your guys' first delve underground.
And it went.
There we are.
And there you guys are at the end of that. Yes,
we went straight to it, didn't we?
You did. You went directly on the right path, straight towards Kual, and you found yourselves quite beat up by the end of that. Kual was a formidable sorcerer. However, he also had some good information for you guys. And we learned that this party, when they go underground, just ceaseless troubles.
Do we miss anything really cool in here?
No.
Okay.
There was some crates along the way that had some healing potions, maybe useful.
Yeah.
Probably.
You guys managed, so I wasn't too surprised.
Was this the first time we witnessed the dancing goblin?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, it was. Yes. So the dancing goblin is a little bit Adventure Time, a little bit what is it? Headlopper.
Yeah.
I was just trying to throw in some goofy fantasy too.
Whimsy.
Yeah, exactly. And such things do exist in Alaire. There is some goofiness to it, and the dancing goblin I thought was a really good recurring little piece of goofiness that we could use. And don't be surprised if you do some 4-level crazy huge dungeon and find him on the bottom level dancing around in the near future. You guys had also, before this point, you went up north with Jeantel, out of the forward camp, being told by Captain Alaire, the best we could do is send up a small party. You guys look the most capable. Go and try and figure out what is actually happening here. You defeated some ogres prior to diving into this cave, which was quite the battle as well, though it showed me that if I give you one big target, you'll tear it down. So I easily learned that, and it also showed off Vorkin's charismatic abilities. He was able to gather ogres under him as well. Ogres and orcs generally would be separate tribes in Alaire. This time, they joined up, which showed all the more imposing threat to the land around you guys. Anything to say?
I just want to say we also met the 5th member of the party while we were at the forward camp. Silas.
Yes,
Oh,
Silas
yeah.
as well, yeah.
He appeared.
Your gazer familiar as Gilroy is, he comes from a secret college and was sent his familiar as a means of staying in communication, he found out later, and also for the college to keep watch over your progress. A gazer is not your average familiar.
No. Neither is Silas.
No, Silas is not your average gazer.
Yeah, no. Well, I just wanted to mention him because he did, he showed up a lot.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Had some important plays and stuff, so.
Definitely. No, good point. So, let's see. You guys made your way into that cave, found out that Kowal the Poisoner, aptly named, had been grinding up green dragon bones as a mean to poison the land. That's what you found in his notebook, as well as some hints to Vorkin's direction, what he intends to do. The notebook said that Vorkin slipped south with some of the poison, and his real intent was to kill the Jarl, was essentially what it came down to. Jarl Morrigan, who is an interesting character in that he rose to power because of the Farinwellians, not in spite of them. He was given the position of Jarl after the previous Jarl was killed in the River Wars, which Melee served in, and against Farinwell, and he surrendered at a very pivotal battle. Many retellings of this story say that it was the right thing to do to surrender, that he saved many innocent lives in taking those actions. Many said that that was wrong, and that he should have fought to the death, and if everyone was slaughtered, that was the rightful thing to happen to Sarangarian people. That is another big piece of conflict in this region, is faith in the Jarl or no faith, and that continued to kind of show up. You guys made your way south after finding that notebook, having that additional information, to the town of Helmtop, which I had noted before was just like your perfect little low-level adventuring hub. It was filled with a couple different shops and various side quests, essentially, things that allowed you to gather allies and power before the orcs finally came for their big raid. In those quests, you guys established a place for the men of the forward camp to rest, and that was at the Gleeful Lily. The owners of the Gleeful Lily, they were rather perturbed by their lack of wine during this part of the season. Helmtop's entire economy was based on the fur trade. People would collect up furs during the right seasons, take the rivers down south to River's End, sell off the furs. That's all the place is good for. Most people leave seasonally, leaving the town at about 100 people or so, because the orcs will just bypass it. So you needed to get the wine. Wine is one of the only big commodities Sarangar has left, as the Farinwellians value Sarangarian wine, so they left that industry untouched. Many of my players in the Thursday night campaign actually were based around assisting the vineyards of Sarangar and stuff, so there's a lot of interplay there. How do you guys feel about that particular quest, that you were being sent off to get some wine?
It seems sort of lowly at first, I guess.
After all you've been through, you felt like heroes at that point. Made your way all the way north into Orcish territory, all the way back, and survived, and then they're like, go fetch me my wine.
Yeah, but there was an interesting twist that introduced us to
the Midnight Court.
Midnight Court,
exactly.
Yeah. So that was cool, to first get a glimpse at them and what they were capable of through that. So, that made it seem worthwhile.
Yes, that is the first place you guys were introduced to the name Sibelius as well, who ended up being a rather big character for this. And I'm guessing your initial thoughts were, this Sibelius guy is a piece of scum.
Yep.
Definitely, we're gonna kill him later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just sounds like another boss at the end of the tunnel, and we'll
Right.
take him out, and that'll be done. It ended up not quite being that way. You guys managed to successfully recover the wine, granting the men of the forward camp a place to rest at the Gleeful Lily, and making your position in Helmtop much more secure. You also freed the Blue-Eyed Beast. That was definitely an interesting quest. He, during the big orc attack, the Blue-Eyed Beast was this druid who had gone mad in the region. He was had lost his tribe due to the actions of the Farinwellians and was stuck in a feral shape, essentially, as a white wolf, who began to kind of lose his mind and attack local farmlands, herds, and whatnot. And that became a big enough problem for the locals that they said, go take care of this. And upon nearly defeating him, though he was resistant to non-magical weapons, which was a challenge for sure, he transformed back into his druidic self, explained his deal, and you achieved a new ally in the fights to come. Now, sadly, during the huge orc battle, he was actually in place, and I did roll for him, but he didn't get to be as effective as I wanted him to be. He had such cool things as, like, you know, he could breathe cones of cold and had awesome swipe attacks and stuff. It's like, he's all the way over here! But that's the way it goes sometimes. Let's see. Anything else in particular happening?
This is where we found
We're in the Helmtop?
Shrine.
The shrine, yeah.
Yes, that one was important. Shanti's Shrine. So you guys went and met with a priestess of Shanti in the town of Helmtop. Also showed a bit of religious diversity. Some people in Sarangard worship Mara, goddess of the sea. Some you found out worship Pelor, the god of the fields and grain. Some worship Shanti, goddess of nature. So there's some very polytheistic depth to it, essentially. And at this particular shrine, you found a priestess who said that there are many shrines in this area, though one has come under assault by gnolls as of recently. Another perfect low-level enemy for you guys to go tackle. You easily dispatched those gnolls throughout that session. However, found that there was some illusory terrain around the shrine itself. Got rid of that and delved on down to meet up with Nauticus Zane, a partner, quote unquote, of Gilroy's, or at least associate, an alchemist who had been working on a very mysterious portal, which had at the time been tuned to the plane of ooze. How do you guys feel about Nauticus?
I mean, somebody else can speak if you want.
Melee did not trust him, like, immediately.
No.
So that was
He's
not a great start, I guess.
He didn't seem particularly trustworthy by any means. His study was definitely in depth, but what would he use such powers for? Anyone could guess. He might be aligned with the totally wrong people. Were you gonna say something? Just about that ooze?
I was saying, hate ooze. Tanner never wants to deal with oozes again.
Yep, you ended up in a very slapstick situation, running down this hallway as a gelatinous cube continuously flopped on top of him, swallowing him. You'd managed to claw his way out, only for next turn it would flop on top of you and get you again. That might have been one of the funniest encounters in Season 1. Poor Leander was scarred.
Nauticus to Gilroy is sort of a rival in a sense.
Sure.
They come from the same school. They have similar but different ambitions.
Nauticus is an alchemist, whereas you are a transmuter.
Yeah. So sort of a lot, like parallel to each other, but not necessarily in tandem or all the time opposed. And then I forget where I was going with that, but the fact that Melee didn't trust him led Gilroy to have one up on Nauticus for a time and taking his notes and stuff, which I think played out pretty well eventually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was good.
One other small thing that you did during this time was you found Zorn's spellbook on the knolls. Zorn had broken off from the retreat from the forward camp to Helmtop and lost his spellbook on the way. He was complaining about that, and that was also when he described his past and his difficulties using his magic anymore, because he has such guilt over destroying his masters to be able to escape, even though his circumstance was certainly not great down in Kalira. So you got that back, cleared the shrine of oozes, and helped Nauticus get some of his research that had been abandoned due to the ooze invasion. Made your way back to town, gave the spellbook back to Zorn, got some healing potions from Theron, the Shanti priestess, and then we're told that the orcs were soon to arrive. There was bonfires in the night, and that day they came marching down. There was a huge battle. against the orcs and Vorkin's right-hand man, though not Vorkin himself. You guys stuck around at Helmtop in order to see this through, and along with Zorn, Olerin, Bill Burry, Jeantel, Captain Alaire, the Blue-Eyed Beast, there was a great many allies you had in this moment. You tore through the orc offensive and made enough of an impact that Captain Alaire decided to relieve you of your service, and you were set free as conscripts. Then you decided to make your way south, committing to finding Vorkin, who was known to slip past Helmtop, already made his way south with the poison, along with some of his men, and you ended up going to the town of Lotin. Lotin was an agricultural town, vastly to show off some of the places that were untouched by the Farinwellians, specifically because it was too economically important for them to raise the whole place to the ground. There you found that many of the people were quite devoted to Pelor to a fault. They wanted to tend to the fields and turn a blind eye to the plights of the rest of the kingdom. Many of you did not take too well to that. In fact, I remember Erlon specifically saying that it didn't make sense to worship a god of nature in a house of stone or something along those lines. I was like, damn, that was a good one. And that also, Lotin itself was a town that showed off how important the waterways are to Sarangar, and that's essentially the main method of transportation. Lotin had a big old lake pond thing in the middle of it, and that was really the central reason why people made a settlement here. Let's see. You went to the temple, learned that there was some undead presence in the area, and soon met up with Arena.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Arena?
It was awesome.
Arena, I think, is one of my favorite NPCs I've ever made. She's badass, she's righteous, and she is a big fan of Leander.
No, yeah, she, I think just the way you played out her character and kind of the way she was written, I guess, just kind of fit really well.
Absolutely.
You know, with Leander.
Yeah, and you two had quite a past. Leander and Arena come from the Silver Keepers, which in the past few decades, a great many Paladin orders and Holy orders in Alaire have fallen, crumbled to pieces due to events thus far not described. Arena was one of your closest friends in that order, though you were separated on the road and finally regrouped with each other in Lotin, and that was quite a nice moment for you two.
Yeah.
Though Arena was straight to business and said she's not going to permit any undead presence in this region, so she went off to go destroy it in the middle of the night. You guys joined her, going to a nearby river, where you found that, let me see, the Lady of the River. You found that the place was quite haunted. Essentially, there was some nobility here that were killed by the Midnight Court for their property. Showed off that the Midnight Court has managed to only grow in power since the occupation. It's killing me. Right. I know, yeah, jeez, I don't know. It's like I got hot sauce in it or something. You fought off the Lady of the River and her undead horde. And discovered, that she was a member of nobility. Lady Storin was her name. And that they owned the East Hill Iron Mine, which was now in the hands of none other than Sibelius. Woo, that guy. That name pops up again. The temple gave you a decent reward for that. And during around this time, you guys explored the town, and you found that Tinkerer. Which you had, Stalter, which you grew to have an interesting relationship with, as he claimed that he created objects that would permit non-magic users to do magical things, and you hated that, because you have studied for years to be able to do those things.
Yeah, it took a lot of hard work to be able to do the stuff that he was making look so easy.
Yeah.
So I resented him for that a bit. But we came to an understanding. I told him, despite that, he could be more, he could serve people better if he was not in Lotin.
Yes.
He's got real potential.
And so you essentially convinced him to close up shop, though he was in a position to do so.
Yeah.
And we left off with you and him saying goodbye, but he actually grew to have an appreciation for your honesty and the way that you set things in perspective for him. Poor Singstalter and his famous seeing beetles.
Yeah, I used them a couple times.
Yeah, you didn't know you made good
Also,
use of
you
them.
acquired your immovable rod there.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, got a lot of use.
Yeah.
Also in Lotin at the time, there was a fighting ring being set up by none other than Martin. Martin, who has no last name. Actually, he does, but I never put it out. Martin Sierre. So he had set up this local fighting ring for the entertainment of those in the area, and was more than willing to judge over the fights and allow people to make gambles and bets. Erlon, more than willing to do some fighting ring.
Oh, yeah.
That's just second nature. So you jumped in and fought with Fralthane for the first time. What did you think of Fralthane as you first encountered him?
Definitely interesting. I felt a strange bond with him
Yeah.
for some reason.
Fralthane Half-Ogre, he's known as. This 9-foot-tall, monstrous creature. Though Martin would definitely describe him as dumb as a rock, Erlon found some nobility behind those eyes, and he ended up being a bit of an ally, a bit of a friend, even by the end of, even as you beat the crap out of each other. And not to mention, this wasn't like a fist fighting ring. This was a nearly to the death, like whoever drops from bleeding out first fighting ring. And you managed to defeat Fralthane in that initial fight. Which was good, because there was a lot of your early gold on the line.
Yeah. And I definitely lost a little bit of control. Well,
That-
all my control.
Yeah, that was a big part, was Erlon, he lost himself to his rage in that fight, which was an interesting character development, as he was nearly about to just take Fralthane out, and I'm glad he didn't, because he ended up being an amazing character. You guys regrouped after that. During that time, Melee also learned some of Gilroy's past, and managed to play with Silas some. And you and Arena had some quality time together.
Yeah.
Throughout all of this, Olarin, Zorn, and Bilberry, and Jeantel had chosen to follow you as well. Though Zorn and Olarin and Bilberry felt as though they were probably still wanted, and have a tendency to get themselves into trouble nearly wherever they go.
Well, Sibelius was looking for Bilberry
Sibelius
at
was
the
looking for
time, right?
Bilberry because Bilberry had stolen from him an amulet with a draconic rune on it. You guys had then to go and talk with Sibelius and confirm that it was alright for Bilberry to be hanging around, and that it was okay for you guys to enter his territory. Sibelius was strangely accommodating. He said that it was hardly any trouble. If you returned the amulet, then he would permit Bilberry to go along, and maybe you could do a favor for him for some coin in the meantime. And that's when he pointed you in the direction of the East Hill Iron Mines. You guys made your way there on his command because he had claimed that there was a problem with giant spiders. No, there certainly was a problem
Yeah,
with
that
giant
wasn't it,
spiders. Which you dispatched easily enough. Then making it to the second floor of the East Hill Iron Mine, the second level, that was a bit more interesting. You found yourselves entering some ancient ruins filled with shadow creatures. How do you feel about that turn of events, Leander? From your classic, oh, let's kill some giant spiders, to, ooh, there's some mystery going on here.
It's tough to say. Leander obviously wanted to, once he figured out there were shadow creatures, he wanted to make sure the place was kind of cleansed.
Yeah.
But, man, they were hard for Leander to kill.
They were. For one, they were rather stealthy.
Mm-hmm.
They were not easily hit by non-magical weapons, which is a struggle for this party at that time. Though quickly resolved, I gave you a few magical weapons even within that dungeon to just make the point.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys tore through that. There was also a group of goblins there, which you managed to essentially scare off.
I'll say we didn't massacre the goblins.
No, you also encountered the dancing goblin again down there, and he had some healing potions for you in a chest this time. I rolled on a table because I thought it'd be fun. It wasn't magic beans. So, what you found was that there was some great demonic power down there, coalescing in that ruin. And you had to gather up some magical gems in order to unlock a door, make it past. Throughout all of this, you guys began to think, Sibelius did not want us to just clear out some giant spiders. There's something more he's getting out of this. And you were no doubt right. The riddle of the door, only the most seasoned of acolytes may pass, was unceremoniously blown down.
I don't even know if we got the riddle, did we? I think
No,
we
we-
just saw the sockets, and it was like...
These are the seasons!
Yeah.
Yes, there was a...
Right, I didn't realize it was seasoned acolytes.
No,
Like-
And not only that, but it was spring, summer, fall, winter.
Yeah.
And you guys had a light green emerald, a dark green emerald, a red ruby, and a white diamond. That was the order you needed, and immediately Gilroy's just like spring, summer, fall, winter. I was like, well, maybe next time it'll be more difficult. That's alright, it was good to see. You guys got some experience. I thought that was a cool
Gilroy
puzzle.
just...
He's just smart like that.
Yeah.
You guys went through and into what looked to be a huge divining pool of sorts. I'll bring up that map for us. Where you fought off a terrifying demon.
That thing was
Yeah.
crazy.
A being of my own design.
That was awesome. I really like that fight.
Yeah. He was more than capable of moving very quickly, hitting very hard. He was practically teleporting, scary and fast. You managed to make some good positioning in this room and took him down after a difficult fight. Was anyone knocked down during that fight?
I was brought down to one.
Yeah, you
like
had to
twice.
use your half-orc resiliency to be able to just stay afoot.
Yeah.
But it was a good fight for sure. You managed to triumph, and in that room, you reactivated the divining pool, and I permitted you to ask 3 questions. And those 3 questions revealed even more about what's going on in the lands of Alaire and what your characters are looking to do specifically. And what are those 3 questions?
Where's the Azamar?
Where is the Azamar? Now, I haven't mentioned the Azamar yet,
No.
but that was your original goal, Gilroy.
Yes.
You were sent out from your school to find a woman of blue skin who had wings on her back. You were given this description. There are no Azamar on Alaire. In all of recorded history, there has never been one. So this is there's a thing that's known to potentially exist,
Right.
but they have never
It's like a
appeared.
legend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so finally one exists. And it's been moving in strange patterns. Gilroy sent out to find that before he was picked up by the Red Wagon. On the way he hired Melee. On the way he found Leander and Erlon. The rest is history. So you asked, where is the Azamar? The Azamar at the time was in the Feywild.
Wild, yeah.
And that was because my party on Thursday nights was rescuing her actively from the Feywild. So that was really pretty cool that they managed to have such a kind of crossover. They pushed her through a dimensional portal, planar portal, and she ended up back on the material plane for you guys to manage to find, along with Jarl Morrigan, though that came up later. Another question that you guys had, you asked,
I think I asked who was left of the Silver Keepers.
and you saw that there was
like one person.
Arena, you, and one lone Master Paladin who had since essentially given himself to the road. He was fending off evil where he could, but he had lost hope, and he certainly doesn't belong to an organization anymore. Maybe someday you'll find him and reignite that spark.
Right.
And then the final question.
Yeah, after you guys' continued refusal to to use the
There's like, I
divine.
don't
Yeah.
want to mess with these dark magics.
Erlon doesn't trust any of this wizard stuff.
I think Melee just didn't care.
No, yeah,
They're
yeah.
kind of for Gilroy, so it's like, just do whatever
Yeah,
you
you
have
do
to
it,
do.
yeah.
It's not...
That's totally fine.
And Gilroy thought it was like the coolest freaking thing ever. So
Yeah,
he asked
true
that question.
answers to anything I asked.
Yeah. And I think I asked where Vorkin was, right?
You asked, where is Vorkin? Vorkin had made his way towards River's End, was essentially the gist of it. The capital of Sarangar, the de facto capital. The place doesn't really have a capital anymore, but it's their biggest city. That means that he was much closer to the Jarl than not. Which means that you guys had to get your ass to River's End, was essentially the idea behind that. You got a monster payout for clearing this out for Sibelius. who once again agreed to be very accommodable. He gave you transportation and safety, as he would say. Sibelius ended up being more than just a crime boss. He ends up being Jarl Morgant's right-hand man. Not only that, the Jarl is the face, whereas Sibelius actually makes the decisions. And so you guys had gotten yourselves tangled up with one of the most powerful characters in this region, essentially, due to his wealth. I think he has a total 8 HP.
It's also Gilroy's best friend. That's not true, but Gilroy took a liking to him, yeah, actually. And I think Gilroy just recognized, like, yeah, this dude's a serious player. I better at least keep him close, you know?
In all of Alaire, he was probably your most powerful ally at the time. And that's because of his monstrous wealth. He has a lot of men underneath him, and he has more than enough coin to spare to make sure that his influence stays strong. Did anything else in particular happen in Lotin?
Well, we went to that other town.
Nold.
Yeah.
That
Not
is
yet.
what convinced you to go.
There was the corruption of the church.
That too. Yeah.
Yes. And the corruption of the church was Loreline, the priestess, who had convinced the members of the Church of Pelor to turn a blind eye to the struggles of the nation and just keep working the fields. Loreline ended up being a sorceress who was wearing a interesting magic item, one that is not in the books and may prove ridiculously OP, but an item of hide alignment. That's how she managed to maintain her visage as a priestess, and most priests would know if someone evil stepped into their temple. Not Loreline. That'll be interesting if there's ever like the gate only works for evil people thing. It's like, ooh, nice.
I think Gilroy has that ring.
Yeah,
Yes,
Gilroy took it.
Yeah, that was important. Yeah, of course he did.
He's got a lot of magic stuff.
Yep.
He collects it all.
Yeah, you also got your immovable rod, which you use on every door you sleep behind. So, you guys defeated Loreline, the priestess, and purged the corruption from the temple, revealing that she was the cause of it, and probably bringing the temple and the whole region into a much better state since her influence had passed. You met up with Laren Green as well, the priest's son, who did not have as much faith in Pelor. Much more of a warrior who wanted to take action than a priest. Laren Green had an interesting backstory, and was a capable fighter, but we never really dived into it. He hung around at the tavern, mostly.
He just kind of was there for the trip.
And that's okay, sometimes the NPCs will do that. Sometimes their skill set is not necessary at the time, and sometimes, there's just no questions to ask that guy. Eventually he ended up finding his place in the world, and he may pop up again, and you'll know him, but yeah, Laren Green. I'll remember that. You guys finally found out that, along with that vision that Vorkin was near River's End, you had seen that he had gathered a force of men underneath him, humans, which showed you that he's no orc war chief. He is in fact a human himself, and a charismatic one at that, managing to take the hatreds of these people and whip them up into a storm of just fury in an attempt to kill the Jarl, for the reasons I had mentioned before. Erlon, you felt pretty strong about that. The true Sauron, these rebels name themselves, and many times you seem conflicted as to if maybe they're doing the right thing, they're probably doing the wrong thing, how could these people have such hate, so on and so forth. I thought that was super interesting as you went through. What did you guys think of the true Sauron?
I mean, I get it. I don't know if I could blame them for what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's definitely something that has probably happened in the past and will continue to happen.
Oh, sure.
But, we had to put an end to it.
Yes.
One way or another.
Just the extent of the destruction.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was revealed in Nold,
Yeah.
where the true Sauron decided to carry out their first major raid. Nold being Olerin Grey's hometown, you were all brought into a major battle there, along with Arena, Jeantel, Olerin, Zorn, Bilberry. Everyone came along for this one. And this is where you first met and fought with Vorkin. what do you think of that initial encounter, that setting? Because you also were saving innocents that were being, tied up, their houses being burned down, all sorts of horrible things were happening around you, that you heroically stepped in and solved these problems in the midst of a fight.
Yeah, there was an intimidating encounter, for sure. There was a lot at play, there was a lot to pay attention to.
Yes.
Gilroy tried to do his best to save some people, but a lot of other enemies got in the way of that, so he mostly ended up killing a lot of people. He's gotten much more comfortable with killing than, since the forward camp at
Definitely.
this point.
Leander kind of went off on his own a little bit, trying to save some people.
Yeah, you saved that woman who was in the tavern.
Yeah. He lost his cool a little bit while he was away from the group.
Yes, and you terrified the crap out of some true Sarin. You were enlarged at the time.
I was from Gilroy.
When you fought the Gnolls, we first witnessed the shrinking capabilities of enlarge reduce, and then in Nold we saw the enlarging capabilities.
My favorite spell.
Which made you ogre-sized,
Yeah.
which was more than enough to scare those guys off.
I think saving the people helped add kind of a different level of depth to the fight.
Absolutely.
And it definitely, while Leander was off dealing with the true Sarin down one of the side streets, it was definitely very interesting to watch Melee and Erlon kind of tackle Vorkin.
Yeah.
And, see just what this big baddie was going to do.
Yeah, what he was capable of. And that was immediately made apparent when Melee shot an arrow at him and he threw it back at her, which I had looked forward to that moment for weeks, honestly. I was just like, Melee's going to shoot at him and then they're going to learn he's a monk. Which was pretty great. How'd you feel about that?
Well, as an aside, right before that session, Aaron and I had a 24-hour straight marathon.
Yes.
So, everything was super intense for us. We had been up for so long, and we were tired, and, we were so focused on it. So I feel like that added a little bit.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It was
a really good session.
It was a great one, yeah.
I looked at my character sheet, and I literally threw everything Erlon could at Vorkin.
Yes.
Every, elven ability, every, potion I had, every...
You were the one who, Erlon was the one who decided that he was going to take him on. He was going to, if anyone's going to kill this guy, it was going to be Erlon, was pretty much what you thought in that moment. And yeah, I know, that first time, and you could have too, it would have happened, and season 1 would have been much different, I suppose. When you got in melee with Vorkin, that was some of the most intense stuff of season 1. Vorkin threw 3 attacks around, dealt a d8 plus his formidable strength, and that managed to, tear you down pretty slowly. But Erlon would smack him with the biggest damage over and over again. It was, every time I pictured those two just dancing off in these dusty streets with the flames rising around them, such an epic moment, and it was a good match for sure. Vorkin, however, managed to escape, claiming that he had poisoned the wine and was going to attempt to poison the Jarl, of course, the nobility. That's all the true Sarin were looking to do, was get rid of them. If there was no nobility, then no one would tie them down to continue paying taxes to the Farinwellians. Then they could gather up a force and bring things back to the way they should be, which is pure folly. It would never work. You guys, after that encounter, which was a bit sombering, especially due to the loss of Ulrich Gray's family and many of his friends, his entire hometown burned to the ground. That was a notable event for all of Sarengar. News spread of that. The other party heard about that. The burning of Nold was really quite the catalyst for many of the events to come. You guys made your way to all the way down to River's End, down on the coast.
Took a boat.
Yep. And you were attacked on that river ride.
Yeah.
You were attacked by True Sarin, who, just establishing themselves as your new big enemy, brought forth some boats, boarded, and we got to see more than enough scorching rays and powerful magic that whole encounter was torn to pieces.
Yep.
You made your way, finally, to River's End, the capital. there your relationship with Sibelius only deepened. As you made your way to the more notable establishments being the Morning Sun Smile. And in the Morning Sun Smile, you met with Sibelius, who had a private room, and began to tell you all about the interesting things happening in town, including that he has new competition. A new member of the Midnight Court has arrived. They are not exactly a unified group by any means. They have leaders, and those leaders have chapters, and those chapters often try to kill each other. Well, Sibelius thought better have you kill them than them kill him, and sent you into the sewers. Though the sewers were locked up, and you had to chase down some folks to get a magic word, so on and so forth. You made your way into the sewers, dispatched that enemy, and also established a good place for your wanted friends to hide.
Minotaurs are a piece of cake.
Yeah, Minotaurs are easily wrestled to the ground and destroyed.
Yep. Let's say I think every Minotaur, Erlon tried to grapple it. He would instantly get a 20, and they would get a 1.
Yep.
And we would all just stand there poking them with our swords until they stopped moving, and Erlon could get up and move on to the next one.
Yes. Another adventure you guys had was that you heard that to the north there was an encampment of Truce, and probably their largest fort. You went up there, and as you made your way north, you encountered a group of dwarves who were hunting down a white dragon wormling. That sounded a bit intimidating, though they had claimed the white dragon's father had destroyed their stronghold, their entire clan. This was a revenge mission, and they were not going to give up, even if there was only 8 of them left. The means by which you found them was they were under attack by hill giants. Those hill giants were easily slain. Then I slammed the dragon down on top of you guys. I thought we couldn't go through Season 1 without at least one dragon fight. The name of the game is Dungeons & Dragons, so it had to happen somewhere in there. How'd you guys feel about that initial fight against a dragon?
It was tough. I went down.
Yep.
I went down really
Yeah.
really quickly, because he had just grappled the hill giant, and then...
Slam!
Yep.
Yeah, it went right on top of the one you had grappled. And you got a face full of frost breath, which is hard to ignore. That, in fact, actually froze one of the dwarves you were saving.
I'd say
right
completely
over.
killed a dwarf.
Yeah, and they were pretty hardy.
Yeah.
But I calculated that damage, and I was like, ooh, he's a block of ice now. Melee, you managed to get in some significant shots against that dragon. It was good to have your support, because dragons are notoriously mobile. Their ability to fly, causes them to be more susceptible to taking hits by arrows than swords. And so, with your position, you got some natural 20s in. I think that really sunk some arrows deep into this thing and weakened it quite a bit. Those of you who were forced to fight up close with this thing, how did I make that encounter? Was it scary enough for you?
It definitely was. I think it was just me being scared for Erlon.
Sure.
Because I was like, I'm just trying to catch up to this thing. Erlon, being a barbarian,
already caught up with it, yeah.
And so, Erlon would be taking 27 damage a turn, and I would just be like, oh my god, am I going to get there in time for, to keep this badass chopping away at this dragon? Or
like... Totally. Yeah. No, that was one of my favorite fights, probably. The dwarves, though mourning the loss of one of their companions, gathered the carcass of the white dragon and brought it back to their encampment along with you guys, and allowed you some rest there. What do you think of this group of dwarves?
They were cool.
I was gonna say
They're pretty interesting.
Yeah, they're admittedly a bit inspired by some familiar dwarves from The Hobbit or anything like that, but they tell their story well, and they're a cool clan that I do believe will have a big impact in your future. And a good story of revenge and setting out to make things right again.
I'd say it was nice for Leander, because it's not usually the crowd he...
Yeah, that's true. They don't tend to take too kindly at first sight to Leander, but these ones, immediate respect upon killing a white dragon. So you found yourselves in a pretty good position for that. They also permitted you some interesting alchemical components, which Gilroy noted was barrels of black powder. sounds about perfect for breaking into a fortified fortress, which you did immediately after. Made your way
The next day.
a bit further north, rolled some barrels down the hill, Donkey Kong style, and blew that fortress right up. Just as I planned. I remember you going, "Hey, how'd you know we were gonna put those barrels there?" I was like, "It was supposed to happen this way." You guys found that place was filled with people impersonating Vorkin, dressed as Vorkin, but at this point you were more than strong enough to tear through some rebels, and found yourself easily dispatching the occupants of this fortress. Then you fought once more against Vorkin, with a very interesting use of an immovable rod. Now, I looked in the DM's guide and found that it is a DC 30 strength check to move an immovable rod, which Vorkin could not possibly have rolled. However, I rolled a nat 20. So in my headcanon, Vorkin dug his foot into the ground far enough that he could remove it, as Gilroy had placed the immovable rod on top of his foot and then activated it so that he wouldn't be able to move. Such an awesome move! For Erlon was able to take great advantage of that, being able to be much more dexterous than he was all of a sudden. But it was not Vorkin's time to die, and he managed to escape in a cloud of smoke. Another...
Kind of melee's bad.
Because melee shot the smoke. Another encounter that you had in River's End was where Zorn was nearly hanged. The xenophobia of the Farinwellians was in full show, and you guys managed to RP your way through that encounter. Instead of fighting off those who were going to hang him, you turned the crowd against them and caused them to make a big enough distraction that you could free Zorn and escape back down to the sewers, which you had made clear and secure. A good place to hide out for sure. That was pretty intense. I knew that was, that's pretty dark. To put one of your favored companions on the noose. How'd you guys feel about that session and that encounter?
Confused. I couldn't remember if I wanted to shrink Zorn or enlarge him when he was hanged.
Or enlarge the rope!
Yeah, I couldn't remember, but it panned out alright. But it was, very political and intense scene.
Yep.
I think Leander took pretty hard to that,
Oh, definitely.
Zorn being half-orc and Leander being a half-orc, knowing a mob could have just as easily went after him.
Yeah.
Definitely glad. I think you rolled either a 19 or a 20 to shoot the rope.
Yes, he nailed the rope, and freed Zorn. And Erlon managed to make a huge distraction. And in a puff of dust and smoke, along with Zorn's magic, you managed to escape. Going back to the tavern, you found that Martin was ready to go with another fighting ring. This time, you and Fralthane fought once more, Erlon. Fralthane gave up about halfway through. He was not so willing to fight anymore. It had been revealed that though Martin is Fralthane's master, and Fralthane certainly has an attachment to him, Martin had been treating him more like a workhorse than like a thinking, feeling being. Erlon did not agree with that. Throughout that fight, which was pretty brutal, at the end, Martin came out into the ring saying that he wanted a real fight. He told Fralthane to get up, and you clocked him in the face.
He got it.
And Martin had a full 6 HP, which you dealt 12 damage in that one hit and killed him outright, which was a surprise to me. I mean, he could have existed as an NPC, but that was also, I think, exactly what Erlon should have done to free Fralthane.
I was a fan, in that session of the wizard battle.
Yes, the wizard
we got
duel.
to find out about cool new stuff that Gilroy got to do.
Yeah, Blink against Kryn the Illusionist, who had a very mean hypnotic pattern prepared.
It was in a new party with Zelryan.
Yes, Zelryan had hired a group
I was
inspired
hoping
by
would
you.
Stay away, but
No way. Inspired by your actions, because Zelryan had joined you on the Blue-Eyed Beast hunt. Sorry, I'm just kind of, it's a general overview.
I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. So he had gathered together a group of similar heroes, including Kryn the Illusionist, who Gilroy fought.
From a rivaling school.
From
as
a
well.
rivaling school, no less.
And I really threw a lot of shade at him. Like hard.
By the end of that battle, Kryn did not think highly of Gilroy, and no doubt he'll arrive again looking for blood.
I must say, he incapacitated Gilroy, even though Gilroy was clearly winning the fight with a single hypnotic pattern. And then Silas subsequently blasted him with...
Yeah, and Martin didn't think that was a good way to win a fight with a hypnotic pattern. It's true, that's not... No one else can see it. So the dude just drops like this. That's not even magic as far as he's concerned. Gilroy took advantage of that and punished Kryn and ended up winning quite a bit of gold. You fought with a Goliath.
Yep.
Who ended up being actually a pretty cool dude.
I'd say it was a regular, slugfest between like a fighter and a paladin.
And it was a good fight, no doubt.
Yeah.
That one went over. You came out on top, though. He got his hits in for sure. And then finally we had the main event of Fralfane and Erlon, where Fralfane went down and Erlon ended up taking out Martin permanently. You guys gathered up a good amount of funds from that encounter. You had many, many thousands of gold at that point, though you were attempting to kind of stay out of public sight. During this time, you also found out that the Morning Sun Smile's rooms were enchanted to be silent. They were silent. No one can hear what's going on the inside, and you can't hear what's going on the outside. This made it rather convenient to receive special messages and whatnot. Gilroy found himself receiving messages from his school, prompting him to continue his journey, and that he's making his way towards the Azamar whether he knows it or not. Leander, eventually, in time, ended up getting a message from Torm himself. Maylee got a message from those who raised her, and Erlon, for some time, had been experiencing visions of his ancestors and an ice giant on a plateau. Visions of people from his past, and with interesting things to say about his future. That's the gist of it, anyway. In due time, am I missing anything else that happened before the Jarl arrived? The fort, the sewer.
No, we bought some magic stuff.
Yeah, there was some shopping encounters. You went to the Lively Night, all that. But finally, the Jarl returned. It had been known when you arrived that the Jarl had set out on his ship. Truce had caused such trouble since the burning of Nold that he thought it would be best to take some days out in the open sea where no doubt his wine was not poisoned. When he returned, you guys immediately set out to the docks, knowing that Vorkin would be waiting. You had a final confrontation with Vorkin and the Trusaran, who jumped out of boats and ran along the docks in an attempt to assassinate the king. And you saw that, no doubt, the Jarl had with him, or the Jarl, he's not the king. No doubt the Jarl had with him your Azamar, and managed to appear out in the ocean onto his boat, which happened in the Thursday campaigns. You guys destroyed the Trusaran and fought with Vorkin, desperately attempting to destroy him. Olerin, sadly, had lost himself to the fact that his town was razed, and in his rage against Vorkin, was kicked into the ocean and bloodied to a point where it's very doubtful that he survived.
Leander's still hopeful.
Yeah. You gotta have some hope.
It is not confirmed that he's dead.
Right.
And by show logic, that means he's alive.
Exactly. At least that's what he tells his friends,
You, finally took down Vorkin. Erlon striking the final blow. That was quite a moment. How did you guys feel about that conclusion there? Even though it was, as a door shuts, another one opens deal.
Yeah, very much so. It was cool. It was cool to finally meet the Jarl and find out he was actually kind of a cool dude.
Yeah.
And shut down Vorkin and finally see the Azamar for real.
Yes.
Which Gilroy seemed to just be trying to play cool the whole time.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot to resolve there.
Onto the bow, and then you're like, yeah, no, it's fine.
Yep, I will.
I'm here to help. It's cool.
As I'm blinking in and out of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
All right. let's see. So you guys finally managed to meet the Jarl, who told you Sibelius may not be what you expect. He's actually quite useful and quite powerful. Together, they rule Sarengar. Underneath, the King Devarius Caldenin, a name that had appeared a few times. I'll go into a little depth on that. Devarius Caldenin was a former paladin who rose to the seat of King of Kings, the Lord of Farenwell. Farenwell used to be a much smaller kingdom, in fact, a very struggling kingdom. Then they turned to a more imperialistic view when they began to push out. It was found that many of the non-human races simply couldn't produce armies as quickly as Farenwell can. And over generations, their borders swelled to a point that they are by far the largest and most powerful kingdom on Alaire. So, Devarius Caldenin was much the catalyst for this, and in fact was the one that Jarl Morgaunt the Kneeler kneeled to during that battle. You guys learned that the Azamar is something to keep safe, in the least. Her true origins are still in question, but she's been entrusted to you. Clara was her name. Sibelius and the Jarl told you that you must escape Sarengar, as now the Farenwellians certainly already had your name on a list. Now they're checking on that list and saying, these guys need to be taken out. They provided you some good cover to make your way back towards Lotin and then up towards Helmtop, because Gilroy had the idea of using the reactivated portal. You had been in contact with Nauticus, and he said that his project was coming along. Gilroy figured it was the best chance to disappear for now. It was tough making your way up there, but you did encounter some agents of the Farenwellian Inquisition, not their average soldiers, and one of them was a wizard hunter, no less. That encounter was rough for poor Gilroy.
Yeah, oh yeah. She really took me out quick.
You found that she knew Counterspell, and I found that you did not have any 4th level spells at the time, so Counterspell just succeeds when I use it. I know, I felt mean about that one, but it was to establish a specialized and dangerous villain.
That was also like the 3rd time Gilroy went down, I think. He'd gone down a few times, incapacitated throughout the season, but yeah, that was intimidating.
Yeah. You managed to break past that, though, and make your way back to Helmtop, towards the Shrine of Shanti, underground, where you met back up with Nauticus Zane, and the entire party, consisting of Fralthain Half-Ogre, Zorn, Bilberry, Arena, Jeantel, Erlon, Melee, Leander, Gilroy, Nauticus, and Clara, and your horse. Leander had gotten his paladin steed, jumped through the portal, not exactly knowing where it would lead you. You determined, after going through the portal, that you're probably in Caradmorin, the Kingdom of Dwarves, on the northwestern end of Alaire. Not exactly the worst place to end up, and certainly out of sight of the Farenwellians for now, but we'll see exactly what struggles and conflicts are happening in Caradmorin come Season 2, where we will be exploring just what's going on there. Well, Season 2 is going to be a little different. There will be a little less focus on the visuals, a little more theater of the mind, which I think will be really cool. We'll permit you guys to pick a direction, head that direction, and all have to be really good at improv.
When are we starting that?
That should start next week. We kick this off at 6, right?
Yes.
Normally?
Yes.
6 o'clock. Sunday nights. Lands of Alaire, Season 2. Anything else to go over in particular?
No, I just want to say thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Hope that gets you caught up if you hadn't watched, or refreshed your mind if you kept up with Season 1 while it was airing live. This will be on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe. If you want to, see uploads from Lands of Alaire and our other series. If you're here on Twitch with us, we're giving a t-shirt away from our comic and game shop, the Freakopolis Geekery. At 200 followers, we're like 20 shy of that now, so maybe, hopefully by the end of Season 2, anyways, we'll be there, and somebody will get a free t-shirt. You can also subscribe to us if you want some really cool Freakopolis emojis in the chat, and show your support for us. It'd be much appreciated. every bit helps, and we keep making cool content, and keeping the store open, and hopefully entertaining. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Just take a look for Freakopolis.
All over the dang place. Yeah, so throw us a subscribe, throw us a like, a follow, whatever you got. It all means a ton to us. Coming up in Season 2, there will be probably some party changes in some ways or another. We'll be having an additional player, no doubt. 5 players, I think that'll make a big difference.
Yeah.
So that should be super interesting. I'm really pumped. Catch it next Sunday, and until then, have a good night, guys.